Donald spent 11 days hiding out at the Mar-a-Lago home for infirm Nazis, while during that same period of time, President Biden made 18 public appearances. But even though the Republicans' biggest vulnerability, which is Project 2025, is peaking in public interest, Democrats keep eating their own. Unions are at their strongest. Manufacturing is up. Inflation is down. Crime is down. Carbon emissions are falling. Inequality is falling. And fascism is on the rise. We need to focus, people. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Nerd Avengers. Thank you all for being here with us. Jen and Jen, thank you for being here. It's great to see you both. It feels like it's been several millennia since last we met, but I think it was 2 days. Anyway, these are the times in which we live. So I wanted to start, just want to show a couple of images to kind of frame the rest of the conversation we're going to have today. Just to, I think one encapsulates the absurdity bordering on, the word cruelty comes to mind. I'm not quite sure why, but you'll tell me what you think after you see it. And the second one I referred to in the opening just shows us the opportunities that are being missed for all of the wrong reasons. So here's a tweet. I don't know who Michelle Young is, but I love this tweet. Donald is getting the loyalty Biden deserves, while Biden gets the scrutiny Donald deserves, is why we might lose our democracy. Wish the fourth estate cared about that. Yes, me too. And this graph that I referred to, the blue line is Project 2025. The red line is Biden's age. As we can see, interest in Biden's age peaked. I can't quite tell how long ago, but it's peaked and has stopped peaking. Whereas interest in Project 2025 is going up. It's just keeps going up. And that's without people paying as much attention to it as they could be. That's without people focusing on it, like pundits and journalists and Democrats, for example. Because Jen Rubin, they are far too busy with more important things. Actually, I have one other question I wanted to ask you before you run with it. Just out of curiosity, I'm not the greatest at mathematics. I'm fairly good at arithmetic, though. What's a bigger percentage? 9 out of 213 or 40 out of 44? That's a very difficult arithmetic problem, I know, but maybe you can answer that question for me.
Yes. One is the percentage of cabinet members, including his vice president, that are not supporting Donald Trump.
And that's the 40 out of 44. That's a very, very big percentage. That's
and the other
out of 11.
And the other is congressmen who have said that they think that Biden should step aside.
9 out of 213. That's a tiny, tiny percentage.
Okay.
So thank you. Thank you, Jen Rubin.
So I have said all along that it's not my job, and frankly, it's not the press's job either, to tell Biden to stay in or get out. What I have said, and what many Democrats have said, not unreasonably, is show us you can do this, get out there, show us you have a path still, give us some comfort that the polls can come back, and let's get on with it. And after all of these weeks, it's 2.5 weeks, I am still here. And I think it has come to the point they have to make a decision. And today is as good a chance as any. Biden is going to have a press conference after the NATO summit. He has come out not as much as I would have liked in terms of appearances, in terms of press conferences, but he has come out.
18 appearances in 12 days seems reasonable,
Yeah,
while he's also running the planet
right, exactly.
and attending this NATO conference.
And he gave a very good speech, by the way, at the NATO conference. So at some point, you have to cut or fish bait. And I think the longer this goes on in the slow bleed, as you say, the worse for everyone. Because I have said this from the beginning, I don't care who is at top of the ticket. I don't care if it's a comatose Biden. I don't care if it's Kamala. I don't care if it's a tree stump. The issue is democracy versus fascism, democracy versus Project 2025, democracy versus a Supreme Court that has given Donald the power of a king. And every day that this goes on in which Biden occupies that space is, as you say, a lost opportunity. Now, you can blame Biden for not having soothed people fast enough. Hey, Brian. Or you can blame Democrats for angst and hand-wringing for too long. Whichever. How about today? How about we say today, make a decision. Let's see how he does.
Well, he had, though.
Yeah.
So confused.
He did. The problem is that he really hadn't, satisfied people. He really hadn't.
No, I'm not. And that's different. Not satisfying people who refuse to be satisfied is different from making a decision.
But
what was that letter about? That letter, I'm in it to win it. Like, why is that not set? And look, Jen, I don't want to go off on this too much because I don't want to make the mistake a lot of other people are making.
Right.
But, I mean, again, I agree with you that it has to be settled once and for all. The question is, who's settling it? Because I thought Biden had settled it. And in the meanwhile, and then Jen, after you comment, I want to move to Jen Tubb. In the meanwhile, we've got this headline: Donald rejoices at how the landscape has changed. That is horrifying. And then Donald is meeting with Orban, a dictator of Hungary, after Orban met with Putin and Xi. So, yeah, let's move on. Is how I feel.
Right. I think Pelosi and a great many Democrats. And this is not just like media elites. This is people who are on the ballot, particularly in swing districts, particularly in swing states, are still in full panic. And I think at some point they have to say, okay, this is the guy, we're going to have to deal with it. And maybe we have to run against it. Maybe we have to run our campaign, Mr. Swing State, Senator, or Miss Swing State, Swing Seat, representative, as I'm going to be the bulwark against Donald Trump, because if Trump is elected, you're going to need people like me. Maybe that's the campaign. Yeah. But it does have to come to a conclusion. Pelosi is trying to manage 19 people who are divided. And the CBC is divided, and the donors are divided, and everybody's divided. There was a poll out today. I'm not a big fan of polls, but I think this had it about right, which said, 56% of Democrats want someone new. I think, by the way, that has grossly underestimated the fact that whoever that is will automatically be attacked, and that person will then be, picked apart. But 42% of the people want to stay. So it is a divided party. And I think Biden can put this to bed, and he should put this to bed. And then Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer should come out and say, we're done, if things go reasonably well today. And I think that will be the reality. I think people have been waiting with bated breath for the end of the NATO summit. And I also think that the press fallout has been grossly exaggerated. We now have a couple polls showing, at least nationally, nothing has changed. And when you get to swing states, he was behind before. He's behind maybe a little bit more. But I haven't seen anything that says he can't win these states. You're proving the negative. So at some point, just choose. And I think Pelosi and Schumer and the rest of them who are kind of show us, we're not sure. I think a lot is going to ride today. We don't like it that it rides at a press conference, but it does. And oh, by the way, what happened today? We heard that inflation went down. So the frustration that many of us feel is you have a superb president, probably the best term of my lifetime of any president, and you have the appearance or the problem of someone who looks like he might not be up to it. So what do? Do you go with the performative politics, as Ron claims it in a very good interview, by the way, with Greg Sargent, my former colleague at the Washington Post, who's no longer here. He's now at New Republic. Good for them, sad for us. Or is he, really in a position where he can't, come back from all this? I think he should go out there and say, what are you guys talking about? It's July. We've been ahead. We've been behind. Yeah. I'm going to win this thing. And here's how competent I am. And go talk to any of these leaders and let's get on with it.
Okay.
I think that's where we are.
Okay. But Jen, I mean, this makes me want to pound nails in the back of my head. It just had because I just, the damage being done, it's a little bit unsettling. How
yes,
quick,
it is unsettling.
I'm sorry, I meant Jen Taub. Sorry.
Yeah.
Jen.
Oh, sorry.
I want to play a couple of clips. One to, in my view, frame the absurdity of focusing on President Biden, who again is proving he can be president because he is being president, and what we have to look forward to if we blow this, as so many rich white guys seem to want to do for reasons I cannot fathom. So first, the absurdity.
Anyone ever see the lovely movie Silence of the Lambs? Did you see it?
Lovely.
Did you ever hear of Hannibal Lecter? He was a lovely man. He would love to have you for dinner. He will take you. You had many people for dinner. Well, we have a lot of people coming in. They always say, oh, that's terrible, that Trump would say. He is rambling about Hannibal Lecter. No, I'm not rambling. We are allowing people from insane asylums and mental institutions into our country by the tens of thousands, and they're closing them down in other countries. You know the cost savings and all of the savings? And sending bloodthirsty terrorists, savage gang members, and child predators into the United States to prey on our people, to prey on you, to prey on everybody. They're coming not only from South America, but from all over the world, from Asia, Africa, and every other place. They're coming from all over the world.
Yeah, no countries that are majority white. Well, that's shocking. So that's the absurdity, Jen.
Yeah.
That man, that despicable, pathetic, vile, traitorous idiot is getting a pass so that he can do this.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't support monitoring pregnancies even if a state decided to do that.
Well, he's made it very clear that he's not going to go and weigh in and try to push various states and how they want to go and set up their particular rules and restrictions. That's going to be up to the states.
Monitoring pregnancies will be left up to the states. Okay. Sound good, everybody? Sound good with the infighting and the weakening of our candidate, who was, by the way, already chosen at a primary?
So let me knit together the apocalyptic but real vision of what a second Donald Trump presidency would deliver with how we open this. And it's not my job to talk anyone off the ledge other than myself. So consider that. That's what I'm doing. You may remember the expression, you go to war with the army you have, not the one that you want to have, right? We go to the polls in November with the voters we have, not necessarily the ones we want to have. 1, 2.
Wait, Jen, can I just interject for one second? Because Jen Rubin referenced a poll and a majority of Democrats want another candidate. But the follow-up is,
yes,
okay, but if it's Biden, then what?
Well, hold on, I'm going to get to that.
I want 60-year-old Joe Biden. Okay,
yeah, no, I get it. So let me just say this: the ledge talking is this. The voters will get in line, but we have to recognize it has literally only been 2 weeks, which seems like a flipping lifetime, since the debate. Let's take a breath, okay? 2 weeks. Now, second thing.
I'm now 92 years old. How is
I
that
understand. It's been a lifetime these last 14 days. And okay, that's the number one point. The second point is I listened to the full interview on Morning Joe with Nancy Pelosi, and it was masterful because for a number of reasons. And I'm not going to start listing because I'm on this listicle thing. But what made it so strong is, number one, when they tried to ask her, do you support Joe? She changed the subject and said, in the election, she talked about his record. She talked about what's going on in NATO, and she showed huge respect. So then they turned it over to Jonathan Lemire to try to corner her again. And that's when he got the quotes out of her like, listen, it's up to Joe to decide. Now, what upset people is everyone's kind of saying, wait, I thought Joe had. Now, then she pivoted. That's what Jonathan said. Then she pivots to, he's hosting NATO. This is a big deal. And what I heard her say is everyone, she knows there's rumbling. She probably knows there's bad internal polls. Who cares? She's saying, lay off this guy. Just lay off. Show respect. If he is still considering, which of course he would never admit that he is. You always say, I'm running. The minute you say you're not, you're weak. If she knows that he's actually still contemplating it, what she's trying to say is back off, let him decide whether he wants this to be his legacy moment or if he wants to continue, but back off. So that's how I see this. It's been 2 weeks, and I think that's the most respectful thing that can be done. The next part, though, Mary, which is the most upsetting part, which Jen alluded to, is what next? If Joe says, yeah, I'm effing staying in the race, that's the easiest thing. We just get in line and we tell people to shut up. It's done is done. If, however, he decides to give a speech, for example, and hand the torch over to Kamala Harris, I think it's done. Mm-hmm. And that's the best. If, however, that is rejected, we know there's going to be attacks because there are people who want their candidate, then we're going to have this shit show of a convention. And this is what scares all of us. Okay, this is terrifying. But what I will say is where I agree with Pelosi is Joe Biden can see all that in front of him, and so can his advisors. And I'm going to trust that they make the right decision. And that's why my focus has been exactly where we should be, which is what the F is Donald doing, sweating and rambling and talking about serial killers and lying and planning to not only have a national ban on abortion, but allow the states to track women's menstrual cycles. And I want us to absolutely focus on that. And we are distracted. We have to make it to Friday and then see what happens. It's been 2 weeks. Friday's tomorrow.
And Brian, as Jen said, President Biden is hosting NATO, the most successful alliance, I think, in human history, formed in the wake of
the last 2,000 years, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what was happening among the Neanderthals? I'm sure that they were much more politically savvy than we seem to be.
Donald might know.
Yeah, well, good point. Which was formed in the wake of our collectively defeating the Nazis. Okay, so NATO knows what its mission is, and they are preparing for the possibility. And I don't mean like preparing, like slightly changing things. They're preparing in the tragic event of Donald getting back into the White House, because they know his plan is to destroy NATO. And we then have, and we talked about this the other day, the three most populous nations on the planet are aligned
against Ukraine.
Against Ukraine, against democracy, against NATO.
Yep.
I don't know. Call me crazy. I think that's more important.
Well, I don't think you're crazy. I think you're right.
Thank you.
But,
Thank you.
That's a very cogent observation. The fact that we are it is. You all have said it, Jennifer. Both Jens have said it. It's about democracy. And the fact of the matter is today, while all of this is going on and they're debating, look, I'll say this succinctly, but Biden came out and said, look, unless God himself tells me I'm leaving, I'm not leaving. So it's over with, folks.
That's what
Pelosi said,
confuses me. Like, I didn't see any ambiguity there. I guess, what do I know? But it
and
seemed
you
pretty
could
clear.
say I'm running and it's weakness to say I'm not, but no, he said rather emphatically. So Pelosi saying if he decides to stay, then we get on board with it. Well, get on board with it because he already said he's not. And by the way, all the polls show that Biden-Harris beats everybody else. And who the hell are you going to have if not Kamala? She's already on the damn ticket. So if something happens to Biden, we still got her. Anyway, all that said, here we are sitting in a position where the real crux of the matter is where is the United States in the future? What are we doing as far as democracy, our constitution, and international rights? Ukraine isn't the last step for Putin, nor is it the last step for the axis of evil, the new axis of evil, China and Russia. Russia wants to get back together the old band of the Soviet Union. And Trump made a deal with Putin that would allow him to do it. So it was Biden who stepped in and said no and is supporting our NATO allies. You've got to look at that internationally. But Mary, let's be honest. Nobody looks beyond their own nose when it comes to election. The biggest news today, inflation is down. That should be what we're all talking about. Carville was right about one thing many years ago. It's about the economy stupid. So it's got to be, at the end of the day, and notice I'm not Clooney. At the end of the day, I don't think, although I'm better looking, but at the end of the day, damn it, it's not about, Biden has made his decision. Biden is the ticket. Move forward. Otherwise, what I fear is everything that you're talking about internationally and the problems that we're going to have with our Constitution and the problems that we will have overseas and the very threat of authoritarianism across the planet takes place if the Democrats dissolve. And I got news for you. I remember the 2016 when they chose Hillary. It was a shit show then. And it's going to be a shit show now, even no matter what happens, because remember the Bernie bros, I actually interviewed Bernie bros during the convention with Hillary. After she was nominated, they said they were going to vote for Donald Trump instead of Hillary Clinton. The Democrats left divided from that convention, and that's the very threat that they face today. If you don't think so, look at that convention, look at the 68 convention. The Democrats can snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory better than any political party. As I've said often, we have two parties. One is a party of no head, one is a party of no heart. The Democrats have got to get their head together because they've got the heart for the matter. But at the end of the day, if they don't come together now and get over this, they're screwed, blued, and tattooed in November. So are we all, and so is, the world. But I'll end with this. It was George Carlin who said, perhaps we don't get better politicians because we're not better ourselves. We get garbage politicians because we're garbage in, garbage out. We've got to have a better educated and a more alert and critically thinking electorate before we can get rid of the Donald Trumps on the planet.
Well, Dean, that's going to be very difficult when the Republicans dismantle the Department of Education, isn't it? I mean, come on, man. Like, okay, so Dean, first of all, welcome. It's been a while. It's really good to see you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm so sorry it's under these circumstances, but
has it ever been under good circumstances? I guess there has been some.
They're getting worse, man. They're getting worse. But I do think that the opportunity here, and before you came on, I showed a graph of the Biden age thing peaked, and let me just show you the graph. There's nothing more tedious than explaining graphs when you can just do this. Woo-hoo.
Wow.
Okay, so the red line is obsession with Biden's age, peaked a while ago. I can't see the I don't know, a few days ago.
Okay.
Whereas the blue line represents Project 2025. That line keeps going up fairly steadily. And I'm guessing the dips are from when Democrats decided that they should, continuing to beat each other up. So we have this pretty decent data that show us that the more people know about Project 2025, the less they like it. So let us hang it around every single Republican's neck, starting with Donald Trump on down. I mean, we know that the House Speaker, a Christian nationalist psycho, is saying, yeah, of course it's totally reasonable to round up millions of immigrants and put them in concentration camps. Dean, I mean, that seems like something that people should know about.
Certainly. And that's why Donald Trump again today said, I know nothing of this Project 2025 written by my former top aides and basically bringing back to life the policies that I had in my first term or talked about aspirationally on the golf course or in tweets or whatever. By the way, I know you mentioned George Clooney already. Look, to me, I'd be more swayed if the entire cast of Ocean's 11 got on board with something. Like if Matt Damon and Julia Roberts and everyone. But Danny Ocean's just not going to do it. You can't just have Danny Ocean. You need the whole team, or that's it.
Especially the guy who has a villa on Lake Como to escape to, unlike the rest of us who are going to be stuck here, for God's sakes.
Right. So, and I, we're going to see if I can spend time with the Clooney's. We'll see if they'll take me in as a refugee. But look, Project 2025 is very important. It's kind of interesting, though, to say you have to hang anything else on Donald Trump besides the fact that he's already convicted of 34 felonies, adjudicated a rapist, is accused, charged of federal and state crimes for attempting a coup, incited the January 6th terrorist attack, is a white supremacist, is a bigot who doesn't believe anyone darker than the White House should be allowed in this country. And that we have to add anything more to get people to work against him says so much about what we're. But look, Project 20, I think, Mary, your point about hanging on other Republicans is a good idea. And let them answer what they agree with and what they don't agree with. And, I've said that I said on MSNBC last week, and I said it on my article. Project 2025 is the GOP's Mein Kampf. It is their blueprint for what they want to do. Mein Kampf was Hitler's blueprint. It was sinister and evil, but he put in writing what his vision was and his policies were. And when he became chancellor, he implemented that. And Project 2025 by the Heritage Foundation, as the overarching, they brag that 65%, about 65% of the policies they call for in Trump's first term, he actually put into policy. He made it happen. So it's not a game. These are his people. And that's why Trump keeps screaming about it when it's all Trump world that has written it. It's all about it. We have to hang on other Republicans. I agree. That's a great point.
Yeah. And just, I want to add something quickly. Senator Josh Hawley, the guy who, what's this called?
Mr. Moron. That's what they call him in Missouri.
Whatever.
Fist pump?
Yeah, I guess. He fist pumped the insurrectionists and ran like a toddler away from the danger that he helped incite. And apparently recently published a book about how to be a man because he's so manly, as if somebody like anybody, whatever. He said this, and this is a direct quote from a senator in the United States who is sworn to defend and uphold the Constitution, which I know no longer exists because the Supreme Court set it on fire, but still, let's pretend that it's a thing that we're supposed to live by and honor. He said, "Some will say now that I am calling America a Christian nation. So I am. And some will say that I am advocating Christian nationalism. And so I do." Anybody hear about that? Just like crickets,
Yeah.
like no, Jen Rubin. I mean, that's not alarming. Like that doesn't freak people out.
Some are calling Josh Hawley a fascist. I am.
Yes.
Some are calling this anti-Semitism. I am. Because once you say it's Christian, it means Jews, Muslims, Hindus, non-believers are not Americans. That's fascism. So yes, it's very, very important. And a really good focused campaign would blow that up and make Donald Trump eat that, because he cannot deny it because his base thinks that. And by saying it over and over again, he should underscore, especially for young people who, by the way, are none of the above when asked about their religion overwhelmingly, that we're talking about a theocracy, a whiteocracy, a white Christian nationalist state. So yes, I will say one thing, however, and that either in spite of or because of the last couple of weeks, the Biden campaign itself is talking a lot more about 2025. You see them highlighting it a lot. And one of the things that they have hit upon is Donald Trump is running from it, and it's really his stuff and making him the liar that he is. Now, I think that's good, but I think they then from there will need to say what's in this really bad thing. No wonder he's running from it, because who would want to take ownership of all these batshit crazy, proposals? But I think underscoring how anti-American, anti-equality, anti-democratic, anti-everything you believe in, they and their platform is absolutely essential. And I made this argument. A lot of people don't like it because they don't like French people. I don't know why they don't like French people. I like their food. I like their museums.
The language.
They ran with something called
The fashion, the wine.
Yeah, exactly.
The cheese. Come on.
I mean, it's really a lovely country. But they ran with something called the New Popular Front, making the analogy to World War II and fighting the Nazis. And that's what we need. It's the New Popular Front. We don't care what you think about anything, frankly. I don't care if you think Donald Trump is right about abortion. If you want to fight against totalitarianism and you want to help us, we'll have you. No more purity tests. I don't care what you think, what your beliefs on any issue. We'll figure out that later. First of all, we have to defeat the Nazis. And that's what the original Popular Front did. That's what the New Popular Front did. And that's what we need to do. And the French won. You know what? They didn't even know. They still don't know who's going to lead that coalition. They still don't know who's going to be prime minister. It didn't matter, because all that matters is stopping the Nazis. And that's kind of the attitude we have to take. I've gotten to the point where whatever, pick Biden, don't pick Biden, whatever it is, I don't care, because I am continuing to fight the fascist threat. And that is not only Project 2025, not only Donald Trump, but his Supreme Court, which invests him with totalitarian powers, by the way. So I think even the Biden campaign, which hadn't really been organized around this concept, has figured out that's what the message has to be. And I think this is a good ground, and give something the press other than the age to cover. They say, well, everything is old news. It's not old news. You guys haven't really covered 2025. Let's talk about it nonstop. Let's have, I don't know, the New York Times have dozens of reporters dedicated to what 2025 would be. Let's have it on the front page above the fold every day, story after story after story.
That requires nuance that we cannot provide in the press, because at the end of the day, we're incapable of doing anything when it covers politics other than to treat it as a baseball game or as a horse race. The fact of the matter is that type of nuance requires people who have some experience to dig into, and that's not what we have, nor is it clickbait, which is what drives most of journalism today. It's simply the idea of getting on and getting as much money out of the audience as possible, keeping you in your information silo, making sure that you don't understand, don't know, but you keep clicking, because by God, we need the advertising money. And until you break up the media monopolies and get somebody in, the New York Times is as guilty of this as anyone, and perhaps more so. They've chosen a side. And because of the side that they've chosen, which isn't journalism and which isn't information, not providing information or content, they've chosen something basically based all around money. And until we change that, we're not going to change. That's why when you say the mainstream media, Mary, you're the mainstream media. Jen,
well, I don't say mainstream. I say corporate media, but
yeah, I do too. But at the end of the day, we're all the media is us. That's the First Amendment doesn't protect corporations. The First Amendment protects freedom of the press, however it exists. Community journalism, individual journalism, the act of journalism is what it protects, and it's not what we're doing.
No, that's part of the problem, Jen, is that the New York Times is not. They are not committing journalism. They are driving a narrative of their own choosing. So I want to shift gears a little bit to just how one of the things that's just making me kind of sick is the disregard and contempt being shown for the Democratic base. You never see this on the Republican side, even though the Republican base is a bunch of white Christian nationalist, authoritarian, misogynistic racists who are anti-Semitic,
moron.
anti-immigrant. Well, but that's, I mean, there's stupid people all over the spectrum of political
Yes.
beliefs. That's not that I'm not interested in their IQs. I'm interested in their beliefs. So I've always found it offensive that the two bases are compared as if they're equal in terms of what they represent. The Republican base is pro-insurrection, anti-democracy, and basically anti all of us. They only care about their own rights. They only care about their own hatreds. And the Democratic base is largely women and largely Black women. And the disrespect being shown them, who are heavily supporting President Biden. I want to read a couple of things just to, that are representative. This is a tweet by Lori Daniel Favors, Esquire. I call bullshit. Biden wasn't my candidate, but he's been a damn good president. He's the president right fucking now. Twitter isn't real life. It's an echo chamber of folks who largely benefit from chaos and continued oppression. Ignore them. I'm voting Biden-Harris, and damn the noise. Yes, to all of that, I say yes. And then we have another, I think this was on Threads by Lori Goff. Let me explain something to you about Joe Biden and why some of the shit that he's done in his past doesn't matter. This old rich white man played second fiddle to a Black man. Not just any Black man, but a younger Black man, a smart Black man. Not just for a day, not one, not two, but 8 years. He took his cues from this Black man who had more power than he did and was virtually unknown when he took the presidency. And Joe Biden had been around forever. He was willing and proud to be his wingman. Not once did he try to undermine him, this Black man. Instead, Joe walked in lockstep with him. He respected him. He loved and trusted him. He was led by him, and he learned from him. And Joe did not have a problem with it. You tell me what 40-plus year establishment white politician has ever done that. Joe Biden is cut from a different cloth, and Black folks understand that, and for good reason. He has shown it. This is what showing up and being an ally looks like. When Black people say they know Joe, this is how we know. Gentab.
Yeah, I saw that and it warmed my heart. I totally get it. And this is what the voting public wants, especially the, Black voters. I'm concerned that I heard, I don't know if it's true, that there's a rift in the Congressional Black Caucus, but what I see from my friends on Twitter who are Black Americans, they see a better future, for example, for Kamala Harris as the next president if, Joe holds the line. And then after the election, if if things decline for him, he could then step down and she would step up. The real question is, for me, it's been 2 weeks since the debate. I do want to move on. We just, I guess, have to see, and we need to solve, what I'm hearing from people who, nameless people that I know who sort of have an inside track, parallel exactly what Pelosi said the other day, which is there's a window and something's going to happen or it's not going to happen. And in my dream, whatever Joe decides, we get behind. I want to get behind him. He's proven it in the past. He can prove it in the future. And if he decides now is the time to hand the torch to Kamala, to me, that would also be equivalent to what he's done in the past. But again, what we said is this. This is about democracy over fascism. This is not a drill. I am so paralyzed with fear that I've forgotten my fear, and I'm just moving forward, doing everything within my power, within the bounds of the law, to prevent Donald Trump from getting hold of the levers of power. And the reason why I'm not digging in and saying, back off, everybody, it's been decided, is I don't want fighting. If Joe changes his mind in a week, I want to be able to say, it's one large tent. We are united as this popular front. I'm not going to resent any of the people who stepped up and were scared and said he should step down. I'm in it to fight Donald Trump. And the dust is going to settle in the next few days. I swear, we just have to get through it and then we can move on. We're all on the same page. And I will again
as long as
fight.
we're all on the same page. And just for, just to be clear, I agree with you. I have found it very frustrating, however, but I've been trying to very badly keep it to myself because I'm very frustrated and I can't completely pretend that I'm not. But it would also be very helpful if people who have been, in my view, jumping the gun, would stop comparing people like me, who support Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, could stop comparing us to the MAGA cult, because that is really offensive and not even close to being true. I believe, as do all of us here, in democracy, and we want to protect our democracy from fascists. We are not people following the fascists. We are not, getting in line without any, thoughts of our own. I feel like my position is I want to be pragmatic and I want to support the ticket that has the best chance of winning. That's where I am right now. Dean, we forgot something, and I probably put it out of my mind because it's so depressing. Remember what today was supposed to be?
Well, the sentencing?
Sentencing
Donald
day.
Trump's sentencing day.
I
that's
didn't
gonna be
get
big.
my 7-Eleven slushy cup, which I think was a fictional thing.
Right.
So, you know what, Dean? One of the things that has also put us at a huge disadvantage is this whole idea that, some of the things Donald did happen so long ago, they don't matter. I mean, personally, if somebody, murdered a close friend of mine 30 years ago, I would still matter to me. Right. So, and he just got convicted not long ago. Just kind of gets dropped out of the narrative. This is a person who was found guilty of 34 felony counts. So how do we, and now, thanks to the Supreme Court, Donald's out there saying he's been completely exonerated. People keep giving him these narratives, and there's nothing to counterbalance it, because the corporate media act like nothing he did in the past is worth discussing, because I don't know, it happened already.
Well, I think there's something going on here, that we put too much weight on the corporate media in that, because we watch it, right? But the viewership for Fox, CNN's awful. MS is a little better, but they're small. We're talking about Fox News used to average 4.5 million viewers in primetime. Except for the 5, the rest are getting 2.5 million. There's so many ways to reach people now beyond that. So we look at the corporate media world, it's awful. And I've said this, I think, on our show here in our conversations, Mary. This campaign, it wasn't Trump versus Biden. It was Trump versus democracy, Trump versus abortion, Trump versus climate change, Trump versus all the things we believe in, freedoms. What the media has done is made this not Trump versus Biden, but Biden versus Biden. And we have to get out of that frame. And part of it's the Biden campaign has to do, I don't know what the miracle is, but creative things to get out of that frame. Because if we stay in Biden versus Biden till November, I don't know how you win this election. And that's the reality. That's the hardball political reality of what we live in. We have to get out of this frame. Part of it could be us breaking out of the frame. Part of it's going to take the Biden campaign. He has a press conference today at 6:30. That could play a big role. I can predict it'll be the most dissected press conference in the history of the world. Anytime he pauses, like, oh my God, he paused to take a breath. He's drinking water. It's over. Anything, he used an adjective. He should have used a preposition. What have we come to as a country? That's where we're going to have a lot of that, right? And not just from Brian Karem, but I'm talking about other people out there. So Brian would love to ask questions of Biden. So look, I think the press conference goes a long way. If there's a point where it becomes untenable politically and our goal is winning, that's a different conversation. I don't think we're there. I think it's up to President Biden right now. And listeners to my show, I can tell you, overwhelmingly support Biden. But there are some who love Biden, the other side is so scary that if it means changing the nominee, if that's what we get to, then they're like, we have to be open to that. But they're not advocating that. They want Biden to win this. They want Biden to do an amazing job at the press conference and with Lester Holt on Monday. And we put this behind us, and the only ones left talking about it are Fox News, which they were going to talk about anyway. But it's going to take the president, to be honest, to lead on this to get out of this darkness that we are stuck in right now.
Yeah, Brian, I mean, that's just so dangerous to me because, again, one side, the bar is impossibly high. Biden is not a great public speaker. Why nobody who's the president should have to be. And meanwhile, the bar on the other side is set at Earth's molten core. Like there's no friggin' bar at all. You can talk about boat batteries electrocuting the water and, jumping over to get eaten by a shark. You can talk about the fact that Hannibal Lecter is a lovely man who has people for dinner. I mean, it's like he got, Silence of the Lambs, a lovely movie, by the way, about a serial killer.
Heartwarming.
Cannibalizes people. It's like he got that movie mixed up with an episode of The Twilight Zone to serve men. So it's just, I mean, yeah, great. Biden has these opportunities, but the amount of pressure being brought to bear on them is just, it's unrealistic, and it again, I think, sets us up for failure more likely than for success. And we really need clarity. And what are your expectations? And
for this press conference?
Yeah.
Not much.
I assume it's about NATO.
Well, it's going to be, first of all, you had to apply. It's not open press. It'll be mostly the pool. You had to apply and be recognized, and you got an RSVP last night that you would be able to be there. So it's going to be people that he's seen and are comfortable with. They're going to ask him questions about his viability as a candidate, but he's going to be among friendly faces. I don't anticipate that there will be much pushback if he shows himself to be cogent, which he does. Look, this is
he has, except for the friggin' debate. Yes.
I don't even that aside. I've been in the same room with both of these guys. One is batshit crazy nuts and a convicted felon. One is an 81-year-old guy who's
and rapist, by the way.
Who stutters, gaffes, and has trouble finding words sometimes. Hell, I have that. Did he have a meltdown or did he blank out? Yes. But I blame his staff for that during the debate. You don't need a week at Camp David to prepare for Donald Trump.
Yeah,
so
let's move on and stay focused on. Can we just make a deal, please, and never say the D word, and I mean the debate word, ever again? Because I can't.
Okay, I'm fine with that. That thing that happened.
No reference to it at all, please, you brat.
There was this. Okay, you got it. So anyway, here you go. He's showing up today at 5:30. I anticipate that he'll be well prepped, he'll be well prepared, and they will use it to promote Biden going forward. And at the end of the day, if he's not leaving, if he doesn't fall on his face, if he doesn't screw up, I mean, the bar is pretty damn low, just appear cogent. As long as he does that, then it is for him. I mean, he's got to prove that he can get through this. Now, if he does what he did the last time he had a real press conference, it was at the White House. It was in the East Room. This is how long ago it was. It was during COVID. He stood and took questions for 2 hours. If he pulls that off, if he can do that today, if he steps up his game, it's done. It's over with. Nobody's talking about, replacing him. At the end of the day, if he screws up and stays a short time, I've got a list of how it's going to go. I think it's Reuters, CBS, NBC are going to be asked. We'll get the first questions in, and he'll probably toss Ducey in or Fox at the end for a couple of explosive moments. And that'll be the end of the press conference. I imagine it honestly will last a half hour to 45 minutes, but that's really all he needs. And if he does it well, it's done. It's over with, moving on. But at the end of the day, what chaps me to no end is that the press, what we've not done is we've contributed to this problem. If we pressed Biden from the beginning, there were a few of us that did. Once every 4 weeks, I would say, hey, why don't you just have him come down here to the press briefing room? He can stand for 15 minutes, make a couple of, he's got a tight 10. He's a good stand-up comic. Biden's got that. Come in, do his tight 10, and then go, hey, guys, I got to leave. I got to catch a nap. I'm an old man. And he leaves. All of this would not be happening. but his press people have given him bad advice, and he's listened to it. They keep saying that they're telling him that he doesn't need to. And that is a screw up that he's paying for. Because at the end of the day, what Donald Trump does better than anyone is turn shit around. And Biden needs to do.
Yes, absolutely. Jen Rubin and then Jen Tubb. Jen, you're muted.
First of all, I think Biden and the Democrats and the Democratic supporters should be honest. And it goes like this. You guys, press people, have not been mentioning the elephant in the room, which is Donald Trump is batshit crazy. I may be old. I may not be able to run the 100-yard dash like I used to, but I am sane. I am sober. I have good judgment. And be honest with people and say the presidency is not about staying up 24 hours, a day. What is this conception of the presidency? The presidency is about choosing Tony Blinken and not Kash Patel. The presidency is about knowing which side we are on in NATO versus Putin. That's what the presidency is about. And I would like him and the Democrats in general to get past this idea that it's some kind of skill test for Biden. It's not about being Barack Obama. It's not about being as fluent, frankly, as you are, Mary, or Dean is, or Gentile. It's about being president. And without a doubt, he has shown that he has. And without a doubt, because he was president, and he now talks like a moron, Donald Trump is not. And that's how I think you have to deal with it. Denying that he's 81 years old or saying I'm every bit the guy that I was sounds like, okay, he's in denial. Just be honest with people and say, of course I'm old. Of course I need a nap now and then. But you know what? Would you want to take advice from Warren Buffett, who is older than I am, or Donald Trump? Which one has a better track record of managing your money?
Yeah. And Gentile, to that point, one, by focusing on the individual, that gives Donald an opportunity to be launching the kinds of attacks he's launching, which again are crazy, but he does them very energetically because he's an enraged, aggrieved toddler with no impulse control. So Gentile, we saw Jason Miller earlier saying that it's going to be left up to the states to monitor pregnancies. Stephen Miller was behind some of the most horrific anti-immigrant policies during the Trump administration, and is clearly gunning to round up millions of immigrants and put them in camps, concentration camps. Both of those people and people like them will be in the next, if we are so tragically stupid as to let there be another Trump administration, they will both be in it in some capacity or another. That's another message that it's a team. Which team are you on? Right?
Oh, absolutely. And it reminds me of the slogan that I've always liked to tweet out, which is Dems deliver, Democrats deliver, and not just Biden, but the whole team. And I want to touch on the economy point. Not only is inflation down, but Steve Ratner was on Morning Joe yesterday, and he showed that the Biden economy improved much more than the economy did under Donald Trump, even accounting for the COVID decline. And this is a really important chart. And what was really cool is Ratner was like standing there like he was Steve Kornacki showing this chart. Like this should be the biggest flippin' news. And it's so hard to break through when the press literally acts as a stenographer for Donald Trump's lies. And I really wish there were more. It's like what Dean Baker said, journalists and the press, they need some basic economics training. They shouldn't just be saying, it's just sort of like basically, they seem to have better at covering legal news, right? And not as good at covering economic news. So it's really important how much the Democratic team delivers. And then the other sort of less quantitative and more qualitative, and this is something Brian knows. I mean, Brian's in the in the press room. And I've had, for research I'm doing on my tax book, I've had access to people in the, in the West Wing, et cetera. And they are so deeply thoughtful about tax policy. These are experts who come from major law firms, know what they're doing, the kind of ham-handed sort of ideologues who are just trying to install fascism are ineptly going to pull the rug out from under some of the programs that have for the first time started to close the wealth gap between white and black Americans, who have lifted millions of children out of poverty. This could have a generational impacts, just like Roe versus Wade went away after 50 years of this security for girls and women. We are going to see if they really end Head Start. That's like Scrooge level. That's like the Grinch. I mean, what in the flippin' world? Where is why isn't everyone's hair on fire? Who would kill Head Start?
It's not like the Grinch or Scrooge. I'll tell you why. Both of those had a capacity to be good. None of these people has that capacity. I would not touch any of them with a 39.5-foot pole, Jen Tapp. So
although I've always wanted
surplus population.
That poor dog who had to pull the sleigh.
It was Max. His name was Max, and Max it was adorable. But
but Cindy Lou Who is all of us. This is like the Grinch, but who's a Nazi. Yeah.
It never turns over a new leaf.
Instead of green, he's orange.
Yeah, that's right. We got to wrap up soon, but I wanted to remind people that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has introduced articles of impeachment against Justices Thomas and Alito. This is a long time coming. It's actually horrifying to me that it's taken this long, but thank you. Better late than never. Jen Taub and Daniel Uhlfelder discussed it yesterday on a great episode of Legal Nerds with their guest, John Bonifaz, and I made an appearance as well. It was a great conversation, and this is more. We need more of this. Will it work? No, we don't have the numbers. Do people need to hear about it? Yes, they do. So Senate Judiciary members, Dick Durbin, especially looking at you, Sheldon Whitehouse, please start having hearings so the American people know what's going on with the most corrupt Supreme Court possibly ever. And that's really saying something. These guys, this illegitimate corrupt supermajority, just lit the Constitution on fire to make Donald Trump a king. That guy. I mean, come on. So we need more conversations like that. So I want to end with in other news. Our friend and fellow Nerd Avenger, Tara Setmeyer, as we've talked about here, has started a super PAC called the Seneca Project. They're out with a new ad, and I want to play it for you now.
I think this video has made me rethink the 19th Amendment.
Will women have the right to vote tomorrow if you wave that magic Christian wand?
No.
A federal ban on abortion, ban mifepristone, ban stem cell research, and expand access to fertility awareness family planning methods.
If you dress like that and you get raped, and I'm on the jury, he's gonna go free.
If you're in your early 30s, I'm sorry, it's like you're not as attractive in the dating pool as you were in the early 20s.
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
These women are getting paid salaries to play for a league that, economically speaking, shouldn't exist.
Abortion's not health care.
We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
The Project 2025 plan is not a game. Look it up.
More of that, please. Head on over to head on over to Project 2025 website if you want to ruin your day. But also head on over to the Seneca Project's website and support them, please. We need to be talking about this stuff every available moment between now and the election, because all of that will happen. Men like that will be running the show unimpeded. So this is our wake-up call. As all of you have said, let's get this other thing out of the way. Let's get it settled. Let's move on. Let us have a united front, one team, go democracy. So thank you so much for being here today. I just don't want you to forget about all of our other programming. Tomorrow we have Morning Gen at 8 a.m. and I don't remember what time, forgive me, but we have, I think at 10 in the morning, we have Democracy-ish making its debut on Saturday at 2 p.m. Finally, we're debuting Brian's show, Reverse Shot, and his interview with Sam Donaldson. That's going to be great. Sunday night at 6 p.m., we have our Sunday episode of Nerds, and on and on and on. We've got so much new content coming. And as always, we're grateful for your being here, for your comments, for your support. You guys rock. And I just want to thank everybody for being here with me today. Brian, Dean, Jen Rubin, Jen Taub. It was great to see all of you. And we will see the rest of you hopefully tomorrow at 8 o'clock a.m.
Love you all.
Eastern. And in the meantime, please stay safe and be kind.